Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's reading of Riding Freedom by Pam Munoz Ryan, illustrated by Brian Selznick. And I would like to thank Scholastic Publishing for giving me permission to read this book to you. And this is our final chapter, chapter 10. Hayward stayed for a month of Sundays, and Charlotte couldn't bear thinking about him leaving again. The morning he left, she said, "Hey, you can stack tender for me as long as you like." "Charlotte, I'm beginning to think you like having me around," he teased. "I never thought I'd see the day, but first, I got work to finish in Missouri. Then I gotta help my folks move out here." He hesitated, then said, "Charlotte, come with me." Charlotte looked out of the window as if she hadn't heard him. "It'll take me over a year, Charlotte. You can get someone to watch the place, and then Ebenezer can come and take over when we get back. Till we get back. Won't you come?" She turned and she looked at him. "I can't, Hay. I don't want to leave. I worked my whole life for this. I belong here. I want to build up my horse stock. And I got apples to pick and things I got to do. Besides, there's something I've been thinking on for some time that I feel really strongly about." She knew she could tell Hay anything, but she wasn't sure how he'd react to this. "I registered to vote in Santa Cruz County. The election's in a few weeks, and I don't want to miss it." Hayward stared back at her and then shook his head. "Charlotte, you'd be going against the law." "Hey, I know more about who to vote for than most. Women are citizens of this country, just like you. They work hard and they make decisions, sound as a man's." "There's a lot of folks who don't agree." "There's a lot of men who don't agree," said Charlotte. Hayward grinned at her. "I ain't one of them," he said. "I just don't understand what should be proven if no one knows you're a woman. I guess I'm proving that here I am, a member of this country that most folks respect. Most of them ask me who I'm voting for, and the only reason I can walk in and vote is because they think I'm a man. Sooner or later, they'll all know I was a woman, and my point will be made." "So, someday you're going to let people know you're a lady?" he asked. "Maybe, but whether I let them know or not, I'll be wearing these same clothes and tending my horses and running this ranch same as always." He considered what she said and shook his head. "You know your mind, Charlotte, and that's fine by me. You know how I feel about you." "I know." He gave her a big hug and acted like he was never going to let go. Then he got on his horse and rode down the lane past the corral. Charlotte stood on the porch and watched him ride away. He stopped halfway down the road and waved his hat. Charlotte waved back. He put his hat back on and cupped his hands around his mouth. "I'll be back," he hollered. "I know," Charlotte whispered to herself. It was sprinkling when Charlotte rode into town that November afternoon, but a little rain couldn't stop her. She hoped it wouldn't stop other folks from getting out and doing what they had to do either. Luckily, by the time she got to town, the sun had come out. She hitched the Mustang and walked down the street and nodded to the people walking by. A big sign in the window of the hotel said, "Polls." Some of the ladies in town went about their errands and didn't seem to give a second thought to the long line of men in front of the hotel. Others gathered out in front in twos and threes, waiting for their menfolk, and acted like there was nothing special going on inside. Charlotte wondered if they really didn't care, or if they were going about playing their roles like she was playing hers. One man came up and clapped her on the back. "Glad to see you, Charlie," he said. Another man said, "Pretty exciting day, ain't it, Charlie?" Charlotte didn't say much. She shook hands all around and got into line with the men. She listened to them banter and joke around her. "Heard Wyoming's going to give women the right to vote." "I thought I heard everything." "What's this country coming to?" "What do you think, Charlie?" Charlotte said, "I don't think it hurts nothing. Guess they know their minds as well as us." "Don't hurt nothing. Them women fighting for this is just plain crazy, stirring up trouble all over. They'll be the ruination of this country. I told my wife that she won't ever be voting as long as she's married to me, no matter what that law says. What does she know about politics?" Several other men added their opinions. The line inched up the hotel steps. A little boy ran up, found his father in line, and tugged on his hand. "Papa, Papa, the Taylor boy said Sarah and I can't play ball because I'm little and she's a girl, and she's fighting him in the street, and he's twice as big as her. Hurry, Papa!" The father shook his head. "We told her about fighting. When's that girl gonna learn?" The men chuckled, and the father and the little boy left. The line moved closer to the desk. Charlotte got to the front and signed the book. The registrar handed her the ballot. She studied the names. Horatio Seymour or Ulysses S. Grant, the conservative Democrat or the much talked about Republican. She had listened to the talk and heard people's debates. She had heard good things and bad things about both men, but she knew her own mind and what she thought was right. You know who you're voting for, Charlie? Asked the man next to her. Yes, I do, said Charlotte. Old Jay couldn't make it today because he's ailing. Felt real bad about not coming, but I told him 1 vote won't make no difference. Charlotte nodded to the man. Would her 1 vote make a difference? Why was she doing this? Someday, when people found out, would they just think that she had been crazy too? Or would they wonder that she had a good reason? Yes, she told herself. She has a good reason. This was something she could do for that woman who stood up in front of all those laughing men and passed out handbills on the saloon steps. Something for those women out front who were pretending they didn't mind that they couldn't vote. For Vern, who hadn't been allowed to speak up and should have been able to. And for that little girl outside who was already standing up for herself. She smiled. And for me, she thought, because I'm as qualified as the next man. She marked her choice for President of the United States. She turned in her ballot, then faced the crowd of men still waiting in line, and she tipped her hat. Gentlemen, she said, may the best man win. And then she walked out of the hotel, got on her horse, and rode home. And this says, in the end, and it's a little epilogue first, so let me show you the picture here. This is Charlotte on the steps, waiting to cast her vote. And now I will share with you the epilogue. Ebenezer arrived in the spring, just before the fall. He survived the property and grumbled about all the things that should be done. The pasture fence needed mending, and the chickens needed a new coop. Margaret needed help selling the eggs in town. Charlotte was tickled because she figured all his bellyaching meant that he had come to stay. And the fall, it came in the middle of the night, in the middle of a thunderstorm. It gave Charlotte fits and worries because it was a breach, trying to come out the wrong way. She coaxed as best she knew, but when she was afraid they'd both be lost, she woke up Ebenezer. The two sat up all night, soothing the mother horse, who was frightened by the thunder as she was by the birthing. When Ebenezer tried to deliver the foal, Charlotte paced like an expectant father. Her mind was on the night she sat up with Freedom, and she was remembering Vern. If he were here, he'd be telling her to settle down. That Ebenezer knew what he was doing. Vern had been right about so many things. But Charlotte needn't have worried. By the time the rooster crowed, a wet, folded-up bundle of legs was delivered. A filly. The baby horse barely stood on her wobbly legs when Ebenezer said, "There's another one coming! Twins!" And in the few frantic minutes, a colt stood next to his sister. "What are you going to name them?" Ebenezer said. "You should call them Worry and Trouble for the night they gave us." And then he laughed. But Charlotte got quiet and serious, like, "Naming something important," she said. "And a name should stand for something. A horse's name should be fitting for a fine animal." She watched the foals and didn't say anything. The mare licked the colt, and the filly started nursing. And after that, she considered them for some time. Charlotte crossed her arms and nodded her head with a knowing smile. It had come to her. "Well, you're going to keep it to yourself?" asked Ebenezer. Charlotte was right proud to explain her reasoning behind it all, and when she was finished, Ebenezer had to agree. They were fine names, important names that stood for something and were fitting for fine animals. She named the colt Vern's Thunder, and she named the filly Freedom. And the author, Pam Munoz Ryan, has a little note at the end that I would also like to read to you. This fictional novel is based on the true story of Charlotte Darkey Parkhurst, also known as One-Eyed Charlie, Cockeyed Charlie, and Six-Horse Charlie. Following is a synopsis of her life derived from research. She was born in some part of New Hampshire in 1812 and lived in an orphanage or poorhouse. She went to Worcester, Massachusetts, where she worked as a stable boy in Ebenezer Balch's stables and remained there until Mr. Balch moved his business to Providence, Rhode Island. There she continued to work for him at Watshire Stables, at that time located at the rear of the Franklin House Inn. Considered an expert stage driver, she worked for Mr. Balch for a number of years. For a brief period, she left for Atlanta and then returned to Providence and worked in several other stables. About 1849, James E. Birch and Frank Stevens went to California and a few years later consolidated several small lines, into the California Stage Company. They recruited Charlie to work for them. Shortly after arriving in California, Charlotte lost use of one eye from a horse kick to the face. Still posing as a male by the 1860s, she was a noted whip or jahu, a biblical term referring to a charioteer of the time. Charlotte retired from driving at a ranch near Watsonville, California. Her name, Charles Darky Parkhurst, is listed in the Santa Cruz Sentinel on October 17, 1868, under the official poll list, containing the names and enrollment for all persons resident in the various precincts in the county of Santa Cruz, state of California, registered up to October 4th, 1868, and entitled to vote in the presidential election. Some historians think that Charlotte first voted on November 3rd, 1868 at Tom Mann's Hotel in downtown Sokol, California, where the Sokol Fire Station now stands. After Charlie's death, it was discovered that she was a woman. Deeds and records confirm that Charlotte, disguised as Charles Parkhurst, owned property in Watsonville. Charlotte's cabin was near the 7 Mile House, a former stagecoach stop and hotel. This way station for travelers on the Santa Cruz to Watsonville stage line was located on a road that was later named Freedom Boulevard. Charlotte also registered to vote in Santa Cruz County, 52 years before any woman would be allowed to vote in federal elections in the United States. In 1955, the Perro Valley Historical Association marked her grave with a monument that reads, Charlie Darky Parkhurst, 1812 to 1879. Noted whip of the California Gold Rush days, drove stage over Mount Madonna in early days of Valley, last run San Juan to Santa Cruz, death in cabin near the 9 Mile House, revealed One-Eyed Charlie, a woman, the first to vote in the U.S., November 3rd, 1868. I have tried to keep the storyline close to her real life, but for the purpose of the novel, I sometimes had to take creative license. For instance, in actuality, Charlotte Parkhurst was born in 1812 and would have been 55 years old when she voted. I moved the time frame of the story to the mid-1800s and spanned fewer years of her life in consideration of younger readers. We will never really know Charlotte's motives for choosing to live her life the way she did. Possibly she did what she had to do to survive during a time when there were very few opportunities for women. I suspect that she stumbled upon the chance to become a stage driver, that she was good at it, and that it gave her personal freedoms that she would have never experienced as a girl. That freedom would have been very hard for anyone to give up once they experienced it. In the words of her obituary, who shall longer say that a woman cannot labor and vote like a man? And this, folks, is a very important book to read this year, especially as this summer we are going to be celebrating the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of women getting the vote in America. It's only been 100 years, which seems really crazy, but that's what it is. So Charlotte is considered the first woman to ever vote in this country, although she had to pose as a man to do it. So with that, I am concluding the reading of Writing Freedom. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you all again in person very, very soon. I miss you. Bye.